مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم.
يا نبي سلام عليك، يا رسول سلام عليك، يا حبيب سلام عليك، صلوات الله عليك.
صل على النبي وتبسم، ده النبي تبسم وتبسم، ده النبي تبسم. اللهم صل عليه.
قلبي المتيم كلما صلى عليك وسلم ذاق السعادة مغرما. يا سيدي يا محمد
صلوا عليه شافع الأمة، بذكر الرسول تشحذ الهمة. يا ربي بجاه النبي أزح الغمة، يا ربي بجاه النبي أزح الغمة.
قمرون قمرون قمر سيدنا النبي، قمرون وجميل 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 سيدنا النبي وجميل.
محمد نبينا بنور هدينا، من مكة حبيبي نور سطع المدينة. من صلى صلاته واتحلى بصفاته، يا بخت اللي في ظله ماشي يشفع له في مماته.
صل على محمد السلام عليك يا رسول الله،
يا رسول
السلام عليك يا حبيبي يا نبي الله. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيبي يا نبي الله يا رسول الله.
مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير.
Following is a repeat show that was previously broadcast on Unity FM.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5, the heart of the city here in Birmingham. This lovely fine day, mashallah, that we're enjoying another day, another week of heat. Subhanallah, I don't think I can remember a summer like this since I was young. It's lovely to see the sun, mashallah, but it is also getting quite warm for a lot of people. So you need to keep hydrated, listeners, and make sure that your children are hydrated and that they're drinking lots of fluids out there, and put lots of sun cream on if they're going out in the sun, lots of protection, clothes that covers them loosely and things like that, and yourselves as well, so you protect yourself from the sun, inshallah. It's lovely you tuned in again this evening. Inshallah, as we said last week, continuing with domestic abuse and domestic violence. We had a lovely show last week talking about this. It was a very difficult topic, but we covered a lot of it last week in our show, lots of discussions, and we had some people that were ringing in, which was great to hear listeners' voice and listeners being tuned in to us. If you are listening and want to contribute to today's discussion and want to take part, do please ring us in on 0121 772 8892. That's 0121 772 8892. Inshallah, we love to hear your comments or your views, or if you do have issues as well. We had some issues last week and people were ringing with them, and we're discussing them with our experts online. Today, we are very proud and privileged to open the show with somebody that won an award and has just won this award, mashallah. It's the Joe Cox Award. Assalamu alaikum, Heather. I'm not sure if you're there on the line or not.
I am. Walaikum salam, Kathleen. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Congratulations, Mabruk, mashallah. What a lovely news to hear.
Thank you. Very, very nice. Thank you very much indeed.
And was that yesterday that you got the award?
It was, yes, yesterday. Yeah.
Wow, so we're the first people to... I know you've been on the papers today, so we're not really the first people, but maybe the first radio show to get you?
Definitely the first radio show, and I'm honoured. Thank you very much.
You're welcome indeed. What a privilege. Can you tell our listeners about the award first? What is the award? Because I'm sure they're all keen now to know what is the Joe Cox Award.
Sure, certainly. So, as we all know, Joe Cox was the MP who was killed back in June 2016. And there is the Joe Cox Foundation that carries on in her name. And as part of this, actually, they developed the Community Champions Awards. And for the first time in Wales, it's happened this year. And it came under having had hundreds and thousands of nominations for the three categories. The three categories are Community Champion, Tackling Loneliness, and then the Women's Champion. So yesterday, the award was held in the Senedd, which is our local government. It's like the Westminster of Wales, basically. It's called the Senedd here in Wales, in Cardiff. And the award was very surprisingly, after hearing all the other nominations, I was quite surprised. I was given the Women's Champion Award of Joe Cox. Unbelievable, for the National of Wales. So it's amazing.
Wow, mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. And I know there was a lot of nominees there, but I am not surprised that you got it, because I know what you're like, and I know you personally, the work ethic that you put into your work and how you perform your duty. So I'm not, in that respect, I'm not surprised, mashallah, that you got this.
Thank you so much. It's nice for you to say so, Kathleen. Thank you. I mean, part of my work, very, very importantly, is called IRIS. So it's actually an IRIS educator. And IRIS stands for Identification and Referral to Improve Safety. And this work involves working with GPs, delivering training to them in the local cluster areas, and then having the GPs identified women at hopefully earlier areas of risk, then referring them through into the domestic abuse service where I'm hosted.
Wonderful.
It's an amazing program. It's actually initially developed by a GP, Professor Dean Feder in Bristol University, and it's gone from strength to strength, really. And I was actually the pilot here in South Wales for this program 3 years ago.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you have to tell us all about this. Just curious, Heather, for our listeners who don't know anything about this. So what was happening previously? Were women not being referred by GPs? Were GPs not picking up domestic abuse?
Yes, definitely. I think it's part twofold. It was the GPs maybe, they have a huge workload every day. And they were possibly missing things because they didn't have that kind of fine-tuned in expertise of what to look for, and potentially as well, if the GP is going to ask these questions, even if they have the suspicions, then they're opening the kind of worms. What do they do? Where do they go with that? So now they have dedicated workers, and myself being one of them. We have four here, in South Wales, and myself working in Cardiff in the Vale area. So now, when the GPs are kind of more tuned in after their training, we coach them in what questions to ask, how to ask them, and how to respond and where to refer to. Prior to IRIS being delivered and the service being brought into this area, we had only around 6 or 7 referrals in total a year, and we're actually on over 700 for the 3 years running at the moment. So it's a huge increase, increase.
Huge increase indeed. So you had 3 previously, is that what you mentioned?
Yes, we had 3 previously for our particular organisation.
For your organisation,
and now I'm personally on 300 from the 3.
Wow.
And across the 2 organisations where I have a co-AE that works in Cardiff Women's Aid, and then we have another AE working in Rhondda and Tastus in a different area. Between the 3-4 of us, we have over 700 at the moment. We're almost at 800 actually.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, particularly active, we believe as well. Because we've not even completed all the training, and it's still not in every surgery yet within our area. We've only done kind of a third. We're going into 2/3 of the area, so we're moving further into that. We expect once more of the surgeries come on board, which is great news. We heard very recently that the health board have decided to fund all surgeries in our area. Which is brilliant news. So then actually that's reaching out to more patients and more women.
Of course, which we need to do indeed. And why we've been talking about domestic abuse and started talking last week about it and this week again was because of the statistics that came out during the World Cup about when England is playing. And it's not just when England's playing, of course, when all the teams are playing, because our communities are very diverse as well. And it's not just football we know, but it's other sports as well, that when cricket matches don't go the right way, that these things, it can happen, because domestic abuse happens in all communities and all societies and all levels of I can't think of the word I'm trying to do.
Across the board.
Across the board, exactly.
Every social standing, every profession.
Yes. Yeah, so which is shocking in itself, and a lot of people don't think that this happens so much, but when you go to training, it is everywhere that you can hear of this. And we wanted to do some shows in raising awareness of what happens, especially at this time of the year now when we're in the football season and the teams are playing, whatever country are playing, and women to know where to go to and what to do. So this initiative that you have, which is great in Wales, and the GPs are being trained up, you said it's expanding?
It's expanding in our area, but actually right there in Birmingham you have Irish workers, and you have a very large team, and they're based primarily in Birmingham and Solihull Women's Aid. So if there are any women concerned at all, that is I have their contact number and details as well, for anyone to contact. And they are, I believe, I was speaking to the basically my co-worker in Birmingham, and she said to me that they have about 80% of GP practices currently being trained. So it's very wide. It's actually wider in Birmingham than it is here in Cardiff at the moment.
Well, that's very good news. To hear about Birmingham. I don't know about our Luton listeners. Our Luton listeners are tuned in on 105.1. I hope it's the same statistics down there in Luton. Maybe if women aid workers are tuned in or listening to the programme, or if you've picked up this and listened to the repeat, you can let us know, ring the studio and let us know indeed what statistics like down there. So 80% here in Birmingham, that's wonderful, mashallah, that we have GPs trained up to that extent now and that are actively able to know what to look out for and where to refer on.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we have wide areas. If I was just to list some of the areas for anyone who might be listening, so we have within London, we have Barnet, Camden. Let me see. Oh gosh, we have all areas of Bristol, obviously Cardiff and the Bay, Bromley, Bolton, Bath, North East Somerset. East Surrey, Hackney, Islington, Enfield, Dudley as well, up there in Dudley for yourself. Yeah. And we have Sandwell, also, which isn't very far. Poole, Lewisham, Manchester, Jersey. Even a Jersey is a new area. South Gloucestershire at Salford. Warwickshire, Trafford, Manchester, Southampton, Tower Hamlets also, and Southwark. So actually Iris is flying in so many areas.
That's really good news. And is this flying more from the trial, the pilot that you had in Wales that you did a couple of years ago then?
The flying actually came from the pilot that happened initially in Bristol and Hackney. Yeah, in Bristol and Hackney. But for the whole area of Wales, yes, we were the pilot here. And from where we started originally, we have actually now expanded into not just Cardiff and the Vale, but into the valleys, that we call it the area valleys, so it's the surrounding of the cities, and that is called Rhondda and Taff. So it's actually expanded up there as well, and up there they're actually covering all surgery, so it's pretty amazing, really.
Wonderful. Okay, wonderful. We're going to ask listeners to get a pen and paper ready so that we can pass you out the number of Women's Aid here in Birmingham if you do need it. If you'd like to join in the conversation today with Heather, who is an expert in this field, please do ring 0121 772 8892. Mashallah, she's talking about her wonderful award that she won yesterday for her work with women around domestic abuse, and it was the Women's Community Champions Award, Joe Cox Community Champions Award, am I correct?
It was the Community Champions, but I was actually the women's champion, just not the
Women's Champion.
Just the Women's Champion Award,
yes. Especially Women's Champion Award.
Yeah.
Great. So wonderful. What did that feel like yesterday? I'm just going to bring you back a little bit and kind of savour the moment for a bit when you were sitting there and your name was called out. What did it feel like? What was going through your mind?
Gosh, I mean, initially it was just so wonderful to hear. I had a phone call over a week ago just to say that I was in the final three, actually, for the category of Women's Champion. And that on its own was enough of a huge compliment, really, and very humbling. And then I was told that we were invited to the awards ceremony, so we went along yesterday, and I was really fortunate to have some of my family members there with me, which was really lovely. And we started just to get, really happy to meet others and hearing all the wonderful stories of people that had been nominated. I didn't think for a minute that, hearing what they do and how amazing the work the kind of area and the work they do, I didn't think I was going to get this award to be first. And then once they started the third finalist and then the second finalist, and then that was it. My table started to slightly erupt, and they were saying, "Oh my gosh, Heather, it's you." And then they showed this beautiful VT of my colleagues talking about the work I do, which was it was brought a tear to my eye. It was very nice. It was very, very nice. And I also was really pleased to have two survivors, so two women who've been through my service from the early days. They come through the service post 2 years to actually attend the ceremony with me, which I thought was, they were the best people to have there. They really deserved to be there. I was really pleased to have them there with me to enjoy everything.
And isn't that lovely to have survivors of domestic abuse and come out the other end and say there is a life at the other end. Yeah. There is you can go back to, you can have a happy home indeed. I was just looking at some statistics about domestic abuse before I came on air, and really shocking statistics about it was estimated around 3 women a week commit suicide as a result of domestic abuse, which is huge. And we know that there is, I think, about 2 women a week that die as a result of it as well.
It is. It's 2 women a week.
Wow.
They lose their lives.
Yeah.
Whether by current or previous partners, yes. And like you say, there's also all the other health effects that happen. Because people always think that, okay, what's going on here? Because he doesn't hit me, it's not abuse, but actually underpinning everything about abuse is the power of control of one person over another. In understanding that it doesn't have to be violence involved in that. It can be the coercive control, the threat, the emotional abuse. There's so many different aspects of what abuse is within an intimate partner relationship.
Yes, there's quite a lot there, isn't there, to think of that, the emotional and the psychological and all of that can happen in that abuse. So the financial, the sexual as well. So it's not just the physical as what people think it can be.
Yeah.
And of course last week we had some callers ringing in. We had one man calling in, and we were mentioning that sometimes abuse is on men as well, and we had one caller ringing in supporting that men are also victims of domestic abuse, and we don't speak about that a lot. I know you deal with women, so you probably know more about the women's situation, but there is some also, of course, some men that are going through this. So if you are one of those men and you would like to ring in and take part in this conversation, you're welcome to do so on 0121 772 8892. We're live on air at the moment in Birmingham, but we're also going out not just on Unity FM 93.5 in Birmingham in the West Midlands, but also on 105.1 down in Luton. And anybody that would like to ring in, please feel free to do so and take part in the conversations. Heather, this is a huge topic, and not just a huge subject to deal with. And I know you're one of our trainers. This is how I know about your award and everything you've done. So you're one of our Approachable Parenting trainers, have been for a number of years now, mashallah. What inspired you yourself to go into this field and specialise in domestic abuse?
Part of obviously, for yourself doing this parenting hour is that the kind of almost forgotten victims of all of this. We know that over 70% of incidents where there is domestic abuse happening, children are involved in that family, and children in the household. And the beautiful thing about the parenting programs and the work that I did with Approachable Parenting actually brought me into a lot of understanding as well around how children can suffer in this area. In fact, a lot of looked after children, when they've done kind of stats on that, there is around, as I said, 70 to 80% of children in looked after, so basically children who've ended up having to go into to have some kind of social care. There is domestic abuse involved in their household. So there was part of that. And equally, when I worked in a previous job, somehow I often ended up having, though I was working in social housing, I often used to end up having referrals for the women who had some kind of experience around domestic abuse. And I think it kind of just, they used to open up and they used to warm to me in that way. So then I said, okay, this is God sending me in this direction, then this is the direction I should try and work in. And I suppose it kind of developed from there, really. And it's a passion of mine. It's something that, everybody has the right to live fear-free. And that is something, whether, we have a faith or we have a non-faith, but obviously for ourselves as Muslims, that is very, very important. Nobody has the right to place this power and control over another person.
Yeah, how true indeed. And it is about power and control, and that is surprising for a lot of people, that they think it is something to do with things that are happening in the household, and that she's not doing things rightly. Say, for example, that a woman is the victim and she doesn't understand, I like this kind of food, and she deliberately does things wrong, and they kind of often blame the victim for doing things. But as you said, it's in all of these situations they come down to power and control.
Totally. And I'd like to bring back slightly as well, Kathleen, although my main work is with women, because we know there are more women than men being victims. However, I do actually receive referrals of male victims, and I refer them into our in-house workers, because we have male support workers as well who work with male victims of domestic abuse.
Right.
Actually also received 3 referrals so far, which is low, but it's hopeful, of men who are actually with partners and they want to get help for their behaviour to change. So that is also something else. I have a referral pathway for them as well. So although my majority are obviously women, because the biggest majority of survivors and of victims are women, I still do receive referrals for male victims and for perpetrators of domestic abuse.
Right. And you mentioned a referral pathway there. Can you kind of describe that a little bit more, maybe, of your work, a day-to-day in your work, or we go walking through somebody that would come to you, pick up the phone, you hear about something, what do you do next?
Okay, so mine is very specific in what I do. So I receive a referral from one of the GP surgeries that I work with. And on there, it's very important when I deliver the training to them and the referral from that, I get very, very basically a bit of information that says whether it's safe for me to contact or not. And as long as that number's been given and the GP has highlighted that it is safe for me to contact, then I'll go ahead and make that contact. Sometimes it's the way of a phone call, if it's preferred that I send a letter, but often or not, it's a phone call that works fine. And then sometimes I drop a text post that. So I will make the initial contact with the women, just have a little chat with them, get them to understand, why this referral happened, if they're happy to have the service. And often or not, that might be, and it's upper of 75% of women have had no contact with any specialist services before, and 60 plus have never been involved with the police as well. So, as I said, we are just getting the tip of the iceberg there. So then the women, they will initially I will assess over the phone with them of risk and how they are, and then offer them an appointment. I will discuss some options for them, and then we make a convenient appointment for them. Sometimes and often it's in the GP surgery, because then that makes it easier for them. I have a very good relationship with the GP surgeries that I work with, so I'm able to book a room. I go in there. If it's a woman who potentially needs that because of risk reasons, she's not known then to be going to see anyone except maybe going to her GP. So there will be no suspicions aroused for that. Or otherwise it's ladies that will come to the office and come in here.
Okay, Heather, I'm going to have to stop you there because we're coming up to a commercial break, and we'll continue with what you do just after this commercial break.
Following is a repeat show that was previously broadcast on Unity FM.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Parenting Hour. You're tuned in to Unity FM 93.5, and we're in the second half of the show this day. My name is Kathleen Roche-Nagi, hosting you for the next 30 minutes or 26 minutes, inshallah, here in the studio. We're doing a live show on domestic abuse. If anybody want to ring in, it is 0121 772 8892, or if you want to email, the email is studio@unityfm.net. We know that this show is also going out live in Luton, so we welcome our Luton listeners to the show also on 105.1, and it's the same number for you to ring into the studio, 0121 772 8892. I have with me Heather Aboulgasem, who has just won the Joe Cox Award, and that's the Women's Champions Award, and mashallah, it's a great privilege to have her here on the line talking to us from Wales. She just won the award yesterday, and I saw her picture all over the papers this morning, mashallah, for receiving this award up with great competition. And we're privileged to be the first radio to talk to her about this and her work. And of course, I know her personally is a very dedicated person. She one of our trainers, and mashallah, she takes her work very seriously in helping women and men to help them if they are suffering from abuse in any way. You're there online, Heather?
I am.
Oh, great. I was hoping I hadn't lost you over the break. We were talking about your route, and inshallah, just before we go back into that, about the route of a phone call or your daily work in a way, but before we go back to that, listeners, if you want to grab a pen and paper or your phone, because Heather will give you the number if you know of anybody else. It could be a neighbour, a sibling, an auntie, an uncle that you know of that is suffering and you don't know where they can turn to. We're going to give you the number in the show, so you'll be able to jot it down and get information, give them the right number, the right contact. Or Heather was telling us about the process about GPs who have been trained up to pick up on domestic abuse also, and she was saying there's 80% of the GPs now here in Birmingham being trained up, so that's brilliant news. So Heather, you were sorry I interrupted you there just before the break. We came quite quickly into a commercial break. Can you pick up of where you were? So you were saying that maybe you go in the morning time and you pick up the phone call or whatever.
That's right, yes. So having received the referral, I look for that very important bit of information from the GPs, and they're actually really brilliant. They always do put it down. It's very rare that they don't, as to which is the best way to contact and whether it's safe to do so. So once I've made that initial contact with the patient, I go through what the service is about, and I actually lend a listening ear. That is so important, that initial first contact, when a woman actually, has had that courage to speak up and go forward to speak to somebody. And that can be quite daunting. So it's really important that validation of what she's going through is handled in the correct way.
Of course, yeah.
Then I go through the processes, and exactly that she needs to know. It's not that every woman who comes forward to any kind of women's aid has to go into refuge, and there doesn't have to be this whole, upheaval of their lives. It is about making them safe, safety planning if they wish to stay in the relationship. Obviously, we have to think of the children. That there is safeguarding around that, whether it would be with any area of work. And then there's also different programs that can be offered to the women, whether it be the Freedom Program while they're in relationship, or whether the basics that I do with them on a first appointment is literally looking at domestic abuse cycle. And when I go through the cycle with them, or when I use the power and control wheel with the women on the one-to-one appointment, they kind of usually can pick out what they're going through, understand a little bit more. And as I said, that first appointment with them it's a difficult appointment, or it can be, but I try to make that as easy as possible for them. And I give them some self-care tips when they leave as well, so that not just depending on the situation, not just the safety, but also their personal self-care, because going through things that they've been through and actually hearing their own voice and speaking about it can take its toll. So, yeah, it's handled really, really delicately.
Good, and I know you're the right person to be able to handle that very delicately indeed. And then after that, when you have the safety in place, the planning in place for them, and giving them this information, would there be some people that would opt just to stay in the relationship and continue?
Yes, there are women that do choose to stay in the relationship, and part of that is because it's their process and it's their time. And when I deliver one of my training sessions, I often get asked, but isn't that very disappointing for you? Don't you really feel like, I'm doing all this work and they choose to stay? I say no, because what happens with those women is they're educated more on what options there are for them. They have a better understanding, and the more options that are given, and the more hope they have, they know more than they did previously. They know more help that's available. They know where to go if they need it next time, and when they're ready in their own time.
And of course, everybody's very different in that, and how they prepare for that and be ready. It's difficult. I'm sure it's difficult for the women themselves even to weigh it up. I'm protecting myself and my children versus leaving to the unknown. What do I do? Where do I go? How can I protect myself better in the home? I mean, for women, sorry to interrupt you, Kathleen. Yeah. For women, the biggest thing is, if you look at women, they have everything what they're going to leave is a loss, and it's an immediate loss, whereas everything they're going to gain is long term. So for them, looking at it in a black and white sense, they'll be losing first before they gain. But in actual fact, underpinning that, which is the most important thing that women need to understand, is they gain safety, they gain peace of mind, they gain a freedom that maybe they don't have currently, and they gain that safety that everybody deserves. Yeah, which is a lot indeed that they can gain and that they to have. But it is, as you mentioned, it is a long term, and they sometimes the short term where they're put is not the best places, and it's very difficult for them. We hear stories of women going into a refuge and then coming home again that night, because it's not the most suitable of places, which is very sad as well to hear that. Well, it's good that you're able to put in this planning, this safety planning for them, so they actually have a step-by-step process in place for them to help themselves, and to a personal one for themselves.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And then if they do decide to stay, of course, you have, as part of that, they have all the numbers, and they could at any time go to, even in night time, if the GP is closed, they would have the numbers of where to go to. Would that be right?
Certainly, yes. Where I work in Bowso, we run a 24-hour helpline and 24-hour access to refuge.
So that's manned 24 hours by a person?
It is. We have a warden who works 24 hours, and we have support workers that work there 9 till 5. Actually, shifts now, they work from 8 until 7, so it's on a rota. But they do have wardens that are there 24 hours. So we have the in-house wardens for that. And I know also within Birmingham and Solihull, and with all refuges, there's a fair amount of them are 24-hour access. So yes, there is everything there that's needed. And although it could be at that time, it is a difficult time. As I said, it is about the process. And you're right, Kathleen. Women do sometimes choose to leave. But then again, that is their choice. But they know the next time that they know where to go, and they know where to reach out for help. And we do see women coming in and out of refuge. But equally, for us, long term, it is about their safety and their safeguarding.
It is looking after them, indeed. And so I wonder, do you have that numbers there, Heather, to pass out to people for that may be tuned in here in Birmingham, Solihull, the West Midlands, of where to go locally? It's easy to Google Women's Aid, but if you have it, that would be great. We'd appreciate that.
Certainly. It's Birmingham and Solihull Women's Aid, and their 9 to 5 number is 0808 800 0028. And then we have the 24 hours national helpline, which is a national England helpline, and that is 0808 2000 247. And the way that works is the national helpline, as it says, is 24 hours, and that would link you to a local help and where to get it locally.
So that directs you to local. Yes, that's really good. Sorry?
The other area that, as well, that we didn't talk about is that women who have previously experienced a domestically abusive or a power control relationship and are out of that relationship now, but then the long-term health care that they can receive and the long-term kind of courses that they do. I know here, and I'm sure nationally, there's a course called the Recovery Toolkit, and it's based on CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. It's group work for women that have come post-relationship, and when I see women go through that, they start very timid, but they come out there like roaring lions. They're amazing. They really grow so well over a 10-week programme. It's a fantastic programme for them.
And that's after they've done the Freedom Programme, etc.?
Yes. So this is post-relationship. This could be also women who could have been, because I also see women who've been in a domestic abusive relationship several years ago, never had any help, and have come out of that relationship but are still going to their GPs with depression, anxiety, but never really understanding where that came from.
All right, yeah.
So rather than them always constantly having antidepressants, the GPs that are trained now, they actually start to explore as to whether these women have been in abusive relations previously. And I have actually about 80% of women who are actually on and down as having severe depression or anxiety and depression. They actually had previous domestic abusive relationships, and they come through the recovery toolkit and counselling and self-esteem and understanding what they've previously gone through. And we're also seeing a high increase of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. I just want to really, my point of making that is just to make sure that women understand that it's, it's not just about refuge, it's not just about physical abuse. There's so many different aspects and so much help in a variety of different ways out there.
And that's really good, actually, to say, because some of the listeners listening in may know of somebody that's gone through abuse previously and are out of that relationship now, but as you're saying, they're suffering still with depression, post-traumatic stress, yes, and from this, going to the GP regularly, taking lots of tablets, medication, things like that may not always agree with them, and the underlying cause of it has never been dealt with and never been thought about, this could be something that's even gone back 10 years and it's never been dealt over those years.
I mean, my oldest referral lady was 82.
Wow.
My youngest referral was 17.
So that 82-year-old lady, was that a previous experience?
Yes, a previous relationship of marriage of over 30 years.
Over 30 years ago?
She was in the marriage for over 30 years,
right.
yeah, and she'd been out of that marriage for 20 years.
20 years. And still it was affecting her.
Yeah.
And she suffered for a whole 20 years not getting help, which we need. This is why we need to have shows like this and people like you on the show raising awareness here, because there is help out there, listeners. There is help out there. There is support out there. We want to be able to help you and support you. Indeed, and do ring these numbers or do contact your GP, who will be able to help you also. And then your youngest person, you said you were 17, very young.
She was 17-year-old, and she came along with her mum, and it was the first experience of a relationship that she'd been in, and it wasn't physical, it was more about power and control, and there was this new kind of what they call taking personal photographs and then using them on social media to bribe and threaten her. So it's kind of called sexting or something around that.
Yes,
and it was used actually in an abusive way to try and control her and to put fear in her, to bribe her that he would doubt that she did this. So
Okay, we'll come back talk a bit more about that. We do have a caller calling in on line 1, so just hold on, Heather, and we'll get this call indeed, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Walaikum salam.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. First of all, I'd like to say Mubarak to Heather. MashaAllah, well done, Heather. It's not often that our heroes do things silently when they don't get recognised, but it's really good to hear when they are recognised and honoured for the hard work they do behind the scenes. So, MashaAllah, very well done.
Thank you very much. Very nice of you to say so. Thank you.
I just wanted to know more about the toolkit program that you're talking about. Now, MashaAllah, it sounds as though you've got very good GPs in your area who are very well trained and are quick off the mark to help refer people onto these programs and help them to get better. But unfortunately, not everywhere is as lucky with GPs. So I just want you to know how you get, if you can self-refer or do you have to go to the GP, and which areas it's available in. I mean, you've got it available in Wales, is it available in other parts of the country?
Certainly, yes. So, I gave a long list of areas that I have. It's the most recent printed one I printed up, actually. So within Birmingham, you have the areas under the Birmingham and Solihull CCG. You have Sandwell and you have Dudley. Throughout the UK, there's Bath, Bolton, Bristol, Bromley, Camden. There's several boroughs within London itself. We have a service down as far as Surrey, up north to Manchester. There's also Sandwell, which I believe is not far from yourself, kind of geographically, and we're in South Gloucestershire. Let me see, Southampton, Tower Hamlets, and Warwickshire. So it's very wide. It's Iris. If anyone wants to Google Iris, it's IRIS in capitals with a small I. And you can have a look at the website, and on there should be a list of the local areas and a list of your IRIS workers within your local area.
So, following on from our caller, I'm just keen. So, if there was somebody like the last lady you described that was out of a relationship, it all happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and would the recovery toolkit be useful for them?
It would be dependent on the person. I mean, the recovery toolkit was useful for the lady that came through it for us.
Mm-hmm.
She certainly did. She did thrive after it. It was definitely different, challenging generations and ideas of what was acceptable and what was known as old. The different. I don't want to use any of the kind of derogatory terms that were used about domestic abuse, but different ideas of how it was acceptable then to now. And it certainly was for her. And I believe there are recovery toolkits, there are self-esteem courses, all within women's aid within the different area across the country.
Okay, very good. Does that answer your question, caller? Is there anything else you'd like to know?
Yeah, no, it was just about the GPs, because not often they know about these things. Prescribing drugs and prescribing antidepressants and things, and women are not moving on. They're just in that rut, and it could be for up to, like you said, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and they're not getting out of the depressive state. But programs like this that don't use drugs but work with the person themselves are really, really good, and it's good to hear that you can actually self-refer yourself as well.
Wonderful, yes indeed, and we're hoping that the GPs will be better trained here now. There's 80% of GPs here in Birmingham being trained up in this. So
they've got the funding for up to 80% of GPs, that they're rolling it out, yes. There's certainly a large amount of GPs already trained, but they are actually rolling up to 80% of GPs to be covered in Birmingham area.
Great. So we're trying there, caller. We're trying our best, and things are changing. Alhamdulillah, GPs are having the training, their services there. So people are trying their best, and probably it will take time to access everybody, and especially our ethnic minority communities that maybe don't even recognise this as being a domestic abuse situation. Sometimes it's put down to culture. Well, that's the way things were done, and that's the way things were always done. It happened to my parents. It happened to me. So that's it,
And sometimes as well, faith is used manipulatively as well, and actually it's not the real essence of what faith and the belief is, but it's used against, used as a tool, which is very sad to hear often, but that often happens as well.
Yeah, so we, I suppose, have to be sympathetic, a caller, in that. But have you gained some information now that you think you can help others with?
I have, yes, mashallah. And the other thing that I want to say thank you to Heather for is because she mentioned something earlier on in the show about being very careful on how you support people. Because if, for example, you've got a caseworker who's been through this herself, she could actually give the wrong advice just through the fact that she's been through it. She knows what it's like. She pushes the patient in the wrong direction when they're not ready to take that action. Just right. So it's really important to be impartial.
Yes, completely right. Yes, totally. And this is something, that when we're delivering the training to the GPs, we tell them that we don't expect you to do the risk assessment. We don't expect you to be telling them, go home, pack your bags and leave. We don't expect any of that from them. It's best left to handle to the people who are trained in the expertise and based in the organisation who have those skills and have that knowledge to handle it in the correct way. Because the last thing we would ever want to do is put any woman at risk in any way, shape or form.
Which is right. Great.
Thank you.
I also have a number, Kathleen, I found for Luton as well. For anyone you said you're covering Luton.
Yes, we are. We're covering Luton as well, yes.
Okay, we have Luton Women's Aid on 01 582
01582. Yes.
87 6636.
6636. So there you are, Luton. Don't feel left out there that we're talking just about Birmingham, West Midlands. Can you just repeat that number again for them, because I didn't get a chance to write it down myself?
Okay. 01582
01582
87
66
36,
and that is Luton. And can we repeat the numbers for Women's Aid here in Birmingham, because we're in the last 5-10 minutes of the show, so that we can make sure that they have the numbers correctly. If you can repeat them again, please, for us, Heather. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. It's Birmingham and Solihull Women's Aid and they run from 9 till 5. They're 0808 800 0028, or then anyone can contact the 24 hours national domestic abuse helpline in England on 0808 2000 247. We have a different onions here in Wales, but there's no listeners from Wales.
Well, we don't know of, indeed, because listeners can actually open this online or have maybe downloaded on their app as well. So we don't know if there's people listening in Wales or not, but we have the national number there, indeed, and we know there's people tuned into it. We had a caller, thank you caller for calling in and getting that information about the recovery toolkit and making that point about sometimes people don't understand it or may ask the wrong questions, and it's better to go to the professionals. If you know of somebody, that don't be investigating yourself. Do go to professionals where they can know what to ask and ask the right questions.
Certainly, and as I said, just to get the point across, is that there's so much different types of help out there. So many different types of help in different ways.
Indeed. One of the things about this that really shocked me when I started researching about domestic abuse a few years ago now was that, and this really surprised me, because when we do a lot of parenting courses and we talk a lot about pregnancy and pregnancy beyond and building the attachment and the secure attachment and the bonding and all of that, and we think of it as a happy event and bring couples closer together, and we're always thinking the positive things, that's the most forefront of our mind is the positive things. But when I read that domestic violence gets worse during pregnancy, I was really surprised that it's supposed to be estimated that 4 to 9 in every 100 pregnant women are abused during their pregnancy or soon after birth. Yes. This must have shocked you also.
It's a statistic that is really well known. There's been a system where midwives were trained to ask that question. However, what we've found that potentially is happening is because they've been brilliant at doing all their work and everything else they're doing, that they seem to be asking now, and it becomes almost like a screening, which is what we're trying to avoid. But definitely midwives, health visitors, I work with health visitors as well, they're all well tuned in to what happens during pregnancy, and also actually when the newborn is in the family household.
Okay. Yes, they're tuned in. So we're coming up to the final minute of our show. Time goes by very quickly. Is there a final message that you'd like to give in 30 seconds or so to our listeners?
Certainly. There is, as I said, there's different types of help out there. Don't be afraid about coming forward. Do ask for help in different ways and everywhere. And we need to break the silence on this. It needs to be broken, and people need the help that is there for them.
And there's organisations like yourself, there's Iris, there is Women's Aid, there is GPs, there's lots of different different types of help out there in different ways.
Certainly, different ways, different places. So many people doing this work. They just need to reach out and ask for that help, and it is there for them.
It's there for them. And in the last couple of seconds, I just wanted to thank you for coming on and really give you a precious big hug and congratulations for your brilliant work and this wonderful award for your achievements. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you.